Wow, fantastic. So it is after the week we had in the United States where I'm teaching, it is fantastic to be here with you all, and it's been an amazing time spending lunch and dinner with so many. But let me start because I have so much to tell you, and I'm going to collapse it in. And please, I will throw some things on X. I'm sorry to send you there. Questions, because I think this is an incredible time period that is extremely dangerous, but at the same time can be extremely exciting if we realize it's a time of creation, right? So in the 2021 Nobel lecture, I said that an atom bomb blew up in our information ecosystem, and that we are standing on the rubble of the world that was. If you take that literally, let me show you what happens. All right, so a lot of us were asking, where do you find hope? Where do you find hope? You keep putting one foot in front of the other. I still have to report, I have to ask for permission from my Supreme Court in order to be able to travel. And at one point, I could have gone to jail for over a century. Ha! And you only have to laugh when that happens, right? Because when things are that bad, it's that bad. This is the atom bomb. And no one even realized it was going to be that bad. It was the shift from the Excel sheet to big data. And I'm going to be slightly geeky in this because you are powerful women and men, and you need to understand the tech that is unmoored from facts. This is part of the way we will explain the results of the US elections. There are two buckets for artificial intelligence, right? And neither of them are actually anchored in facts. The first, which has been around since really 2004, but really took off in around 2014, is the machine learning and AI of social media. What that meant is that if, I'm sure all of us are on social media, it meant that you, on Facebook alone, they have taken at least 2,338 buckets of data, huge, tens of thousands of data points, to make a model of you that knows you better than you know yourself. Let's replace the word model with clone, right? So we've been cloned, and micro-targeting is not the same as old-style advertising. Micro-targeting is taking your weakest moment to a message and selling it to a company or country, right? And then we moved November 2022 to generative AI. And generative AI, and I'll show you examples of both of these and how they attack women, literally makes things up, right? Fact and fiction are the same in some people's minds, and that is the biggest danger. Let me show you some examples. Social media, by design, is mildly addictive, right? It's like a slot machine. There's an opportunity, you get an unpredictable reward, and then you can repeat it really quickly. What has it brought us? Oh yeah, information warfare. The ability for a government or a company, because we use this micro-targeting, to go down to the cellular level of a democracy. It hacks our biology, changes the way we feel, to change the way we see the world, to change the way we act. So what does that mean? We know on social media that as of 2018, MIT said lies spread 6 times faster. That's 2018, before Elon Musk bought X, right? Lies spread 6 times faster. From 2017 in the Philippines, our data showed that if you spike it with fear, anger, and hate, it goes viral. So there's the personal, there's in a group, because we behave differently in groups. If I make this group believe that we are in Manila, you may actually spread it more because, you know, the Solomon Asch study, 75% of us, of humans, will go with what the group says, even if we know it's wrong, right? This was the Line study from the 60s. So the group behaves differently, and that creates emergent human behavior. We now live in a corrupted public information ecosystem that rewards the worst of humanity. Let me say that one more time. It rewards the distribution, viral distribution. Meta-narrative beliefs will grow out of the worst of who we are as human beings. So the goodness of human nature, everything every woman here has been working for, gets shunted aside and requires exponential effort to stay in place, right? The Sustainable Development Goals, gender, has taken a step backwards. And sorry, that's only the first point. We worry about kids, right? They have ADHD, shortened attention spans. All of us on social media have shortened attention spans now. But beyond that, teenagers now, and the Surgeon General of the United States finally came out with this report just last May, increased incidence of depression, of eating disorders among young girls, of suicides, so many more, right? Keep your kids off the gadgets for a while. Again, you can only laugh at where we are, because I would say since 2016, when we saw it coming for us, we've been trying really hard for regulation, and the EU kicked in, but we're fighting big tech lobby. What has that done? Well, the Friends of Friends algorithm, right, which is a growth algorithm, literally polarizes. So what did that in the Philippines in 2016? And I tell you this, backed with data, running a news organization, so I see the business, and I was a target of attack. So I get all those data points. That's the upside of being the target of attacks, right? There is always an upside. But what that does, this Friends of Friends algorithm for growth, is they A/B tested it, so if you are pro-Duterte in 2016, the Friends of Friends algorithm will move you further right. If you're anti-Duterte, you move further left. And you can replace Duterte with Bolsonaro, with Orban, with Trump. This is the reason why we have such separate realities. And then what happens? You know, right now, American journalists are talking about the bros on podcasts. That's like 8 years of cascading failures, right? Because it's not as if they actually are telling you data points of inflation. You know, the fact that in America, inflation is at its lowest right now, right? Or that immigration, border crossings are also at its lowest since 2021. You don't get those facts on these far-right podcasts. What you get is sexism, misogyny, and I'm going to use what Orban used, which is white replacement theory, right? It's literally in Hungary's constitution. Americans would call it racism. And that has led to this power shift in 2024. And when I say election integrity here, I don't mean like what CISA in the United States is. I'm talking about whether we as voters in a democracy still have agency. Or are we insidiously manipulated, right? Right before here, if you go on my X feed now, I just tweeted a report that had statistical surveys and data from 3 years of big data that showed at least 7 layers of manipulation of the American public before they went to vote. That's what I mean by election integrity. And we're seeing a geopolitical turn to fascism. And I use the word fascism because Madeleine Albright made me use fascism. Literally, because I was like, you know, remember when her book came out in 2018? I was like, really? Do you really want to use fascism? And she said, Maria. Then she told me about the salami. You remember the salami? You slice the salami. That's how democracy dies. I say it's death by 1,000 cuts. But so, yes. All right, there's a lot to do. Let me quickly go through the things so you can see what it looks like. If it has happened to you, we know ways to help you. In 2016, we published this. We found out, just going by Excel sheet data, that 26 fake accounts, a sock puppet of 26 fake accounts, can influence at least 3 million others. Very cheap. And when I saw that in 2016, I panicked. But we published the stories, and I wrote 2 of these 3 pieces, how Facebook algorithms impact democracy. We know it really well, because I have all the data behind it. Let me show you some of the attacks. At a certain point in 2016, I was attacked bottom up. You know, a lie told 1,000,000 times becomes a fact, right? And this is 3 sentences I've said over and over. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, we have no shared reality. You cannot begin to solve any problem, let alone the existential ones like climate change. Did you notice it's warmer in Reykjavik? Let alone news organizations surviving and democracy surviving. We're at that point. It's an existential moment. This is a map of the first of about 20 evolutions of information operations against us. It was so organized in 2016 that it was broken down by demographics. It did the elite, kind of the thinking class, the medium, our middle class, and then our mass base. And what's fascinating with here is what do they share? In order to get around content moderation problems of Facebook, they did things like this. There would be memes, right? This is the precursor of the Bros podcast that everyone is so marveling about. And then there would be things like this. If you are insecure about anything and you're a broadcaster, a female journalist, you will be attacked. I'm not corrupt. And so I do have dry skin. Who knew that was going to be a problem? I have dry skin, and so what they did is they couldn't find corruption. They couldn't find anything else. So every picture, every time we won an award, or I'm speaking to you, they would make my skin look horrible. It's not so bad, especially if I sleep, right? But the next one, don't drink, don't eat right now. This is, so they created, it moves towards dehumanization, right? It's the normal threats, but then women leaders know this because after female journalists, they went after women activists, and then they went after women leaders, right? So doxing, those death threats, you know, the joke, we eat them for breakfast, but the dehumanization, it's really hard to fight. They started calling me scrotum face. So I went to the platforms to say, you know, you really should take this stuff down. And then they said, but you're a public figure. That's actually not true. You know, the Philippines has a constitution like the United States where journalists have protection. So what they did, I mean, it took months. And the first one was sent to me by my mom. You know, it's all these types of stuff you live through. Anyway, what happened was when they did take it down, then the folks who were hired to do this got even more creative. They began saying, instead of scrotum face, they began code words, SF, scrotum face. But then they did things like this. Again, my skin is much better than that. But Vove PH is a Facebook page. And then once this came out on PBS, 1,000 cuts, you can see that. Look how creative they got here. I'm lucky compared to others, right? Because we were among the first. It's gotten worse. So in 2022, the Chilling was published by UNESCO, and this one looks at, again, only women journalists, but what's fascinating is they're all connected. 73% of women journalists surveyed by the International Center for Journalists experienced online abuse, 73%. 25% of those received threats of physical violence, and of that, 20% had been attacked in the real world, right? Online violence is real world violence. Sorry, you gotta go back and see that number again, right? 20% in the real world. So what did that mean? Like for me and for little Rappler, Rappler is a company of about 100 people, 63% women, not by design. We need more men. Median age of 23 years old, so very young. And we couldn't, I needed to protect my team. So when these attacks happened in 2016, we had to increase our security 6 times in 3 months, right? That, talk about the, we're not a huge multinational. All right, let me bring you to generative AI, because you have to see how they tore apart our shared reality, but now they're really creating a new reality. I want to show you this. This is my first deep fake. It's the first of many. My most recent one tells people who have diabetes to throw away their insulin. Uh, but this one, let me show it to you. It's the first audio deep fake in the Philippines. Here we go.
Today I want to share one of my big secrets. What helped me to become a successful person is to quickly jump into new opportunities without any hesitation. And right now, my #1 source of income is a new automated cryptocurrency trading program. This is the biggest opportunity I've seen in my entire life to make a big fortune quickly.
I didn't try, that was my voice. Sounds okay though, right? Sounds like my voice. And I had CTOs and CEOs calling me asking about the cryptocurrency that I was talking about. But it was interesting that it's a Russian scam network, right? Or is there a link to politics? I'm pursuing that because I want to figure out, that's where investigative journalists work. Let me pull it out to some big picture things. And this one is from Kenya, sexual reproductive health rights in Kenya. I've worked on this with Christina Wilfor from She Persisted. And you can see here, this is happening all around the world, right? How does conspiracy, how does bad stuff spread? How do the lies spread? Well, the way you do it from social network analysis is it's the boundary spanner, right? Meaning, I'm from my country, you're from Argentina, and I'm a boundary spanner for you to the Philippines, and you're a boundary spanner for me to Argentina. If I tell it to you, you spread it to your network, that's how information cascades happen, right? So in this one, the way disinformation spreads and grows and creates the bros is because they find boundary spanners. In YouTube, in Brazil, for example, right, it was a recommendation, a clustering algorithm that brought Bolsonaro from the far-right fringe, right, he was a far-right fringe, clustered him with every single conspiracy theories, grew that audience, and brought him from the far-right to the mainstream to become president. Right? The Philippines and Brazil are very similar right now. We were in hell, now we're in purgatory. While the West may just be heading to hell, right? So that's one. You get beyond the echo chambers through boundary spanner. The second one, and this one is interesting, people think that disinformation is a one-off thing. It's not. It separates people in reality. Radical networks then reject mainstream media, and then they go off and create their own reality, right? Let me zoom into this. This is something called echoing. If you're interested in this, I can send the academic paper to you. But we started tracking it beginning in 2013 all the way to 2022. And this was just one disinformation, which was Marcos was the name of our dictator, ousted in a people power revolt in 1986. His only son and namesake ran for president and won overwhelmingly in 2022. We watched in plain sight. History changed. Remember Milan Kundera's quote, "The struggle of man against power is the struggle of memory against forgetting." This is how online the networks forget. We forget. In 2015, this was a narrative to show that they weren't corrupt. They found buried gold. They found buried gold. And you can see the orange is where it was beginning because he was running for vice president in 2016, right? So this is actually, you can see, right, these are the groups. So orange are the groups that are fighting. Those are news groups and fact checkers. And then this is the narrative that is winning, right? So you can see, 2016, he lost vice presidency by 200,000 votes. And then it grows in 2017, grows in 2018. In 2019, it explodes because he's now running for president in 2022. He then explodes even more. This then, we, the news people and fact checkers, began fighting back in 2021. And in 2022, I don't know why it's purple. It's purple because then you had Marcos and Duterte networks working together. It's a little bit better in the Philippines today, but this is part of how the Trump wind went. Let me quickly take you to this data that we have from the US information ecosystem, because how you vote is going to be dependent on where you get your, and I'm going to put in rabbit ears, news, right? Because if you're on social media, you will get, in this report, we actually laid out 7 layers of manipulation as Americans went to vote. But here, we took 3 years of data, of big data on Facebook. This is on Facebook, on the 3 contentious issues of immigration, abortion, and Gaza. And what was fascinating is immigration, when you actually map it, you will see that it is unhinged from mainstream media, unhinged from reality, right? I mean, they're eating pets, right? You know some of these things, it hits you. And then it's largely driven by the far right. When it's driven by the far right, you have to include global. This is actually where these networks come together on immigration. Abortion, Israel, Hamas, but you know, there's more. I tweeted this so you can get the full thing, but look at the top sources in news rabbit ears for key issues. Look at it by age, right? And you'll begin to see why we don't have facts. 18 to 34, they get their news from social media. 6 out of 10 say they get their news from social media. 35 to 54 were just getting married, raising kids, right? Mainstream media followed very closely by social media. And then you see the generation gap, 55 and above, we still go to mainstream media, right? But it's the reason why mainstream media is under attack. There are maps of this in that report that you can say. Finally, here, as 2024, when about half of the world goes to vote, this is what happened. Every country where there was an election, Facebook began to choke traffic to news, beginning in January 2023, a drop of anywhere from 35% to 85%. And then generative AI search began to roll out March last year. It was formally rolled out in the United States in May, 125 countries. You know what that means, right? News groups are not going to get traffic back to their site because Google put its AI on top of search. So Rappler, for example, I block every AI bot, except I can't block Google because if I do, we disappear from search. And 59% of my traffic is from search, right? So there's that second one that leads to the business model of news, right? That's why you're seeing so many layoffs. Finally, the third one, the enshittification of the internet. It's a nice word. Cory Doctorow coined it. As of January this year, there's an academic paper that said 57.1% of the internet today is low-quality content. They're either repurposed content or AI-generated content or badly translated AI content. So I'm making a bet that we are gonna demand better. I hope soon, and women will probably lead the charge. And the man sitting right in front of me, of course. But how do you rebuild trust? I will wrap this up. But I won't leave you with all the problems. I'll give you 2 solutions that worked for us, right? How do you rebuild trust? We have 3 pillars, and this was from when we started Rappler in 2012. It's technology, journalism, community, right? On technology, I'll show you how we map. All of those maps come from self-defense. Literally. I wanted to understand how we were being manipulated in the Philippines, and then I realized, oh my God, the entire world is being manipulated. So the tech and data. On journalism, news organizations are not going to be able to survive this time period, right? So for digital news, we may die in 6 to 8 months. That's how quickly it can go. But I helped co-found the International Fund for Public Interest Media. Amelie, our COO, is here somewhere. We are raising $150 million to give to news organizations as we hemorrhaged finding the final, I can't say the final solution, I mean, finding a way out of the problem, right? That's journalism. Finally, community. Let me show you what every country can do. On a community thing, remember that It's journalism, technology, and community. Our community is everything. I went to the Planned Parenthood one up top, right? This is the community that cares, and you need to hold each other tight. So what did we do? Well, we've been pounded for 8 years, and I'm tired of being a punching bag. So we created, and Google News Initiative helped fund this, we created an influencer marketing campaign for facts. Using the exact same system, right? You just have to work 4 times harder in order to not lose ground and to gain ground. But what we did here is about 150 different groups came together, and we created what we call the Facts First PH Pyramid. 16 news organizations doing fact checks, and then that mesh layer distribution becomes critical, because that is what is being manipulated, right? From the content creation to the distribution. Here, the church became a great ally. Business groups, civil society groups, human rights groups, activists, artists. And the goal every day, this is Nerve, our sister company. Nerve would send everyone, so there's about 150 groups times anywhere from 100 to 1,000 people per group. Every person there needs to share a fact check, and they share it with emotion. But they can't use anger. Because you don't want to be a monster to fight a monster, right? So what did we find when we mapped it? Is that inspiration spreads as fast as anger. I would wager that if Kamala Harris, if the vote had been in the first month after Joe Biden stepped down, she had a good chance of winning. But the tech weighs in on the side of the bully: fear, anger, hate, right? Finally, the third layer is research. So we took all that data, pumped it up to our academic partners, because news organizations are so torn apart that academe then came in, and every week one of them would do a press conference where they will say, these are the meta-narratives that are being used to manipulate you. This is who is winning. This is who is losing. And then finally, the last one, 6 legal groups, left, right, and center. They needed to protect us, because when we put this pyramid together, the Office of the Solicitor General filed a case against me at the Supreme Court saying, America, keep track of this, fact-checking is prior restraint. It doesn't make sense, right? Fact-checking is not prior restraint. But we had to act, it's nuisance. We won it in the end, but it's nuisance. All right, so here's what we did. Influencers, someone even got us a billboard. It was great. And we actually were able to every week map our information ecosystem, and it clustered into 4 groups. Iceland could do this for its elections, so it was really interesting. And it clustered, we found out that people who actually share the news tend to cluster together. The sizes of the circles are based on eigenvector centrality, so the larger the circle, the more powerful to spread. Artists tend to stick together. Activists tend to stick together. But this is the part I didn't really count on, which, I became really good friends with the Pope after this. I started going to the Vatican. No, seriously, faith is important, because if religion doesn't step in, cults do, right? So this is how we did it. You mobilize your boundary spanners, data-backed influence strategy. You need the facts. That is where all the lying tech comes to anyway. But understand that that is not what our tech is doing. They're not anchored in facts. And then the other part, you got to use emotion. Because even before social media, 85%, this is another study I can share with you, 85% of how we vote is not based on what we think. It's based on how we feel. And that's the part that's been hacked by the tech, right? I'm closing. This is the moment that we took over the center of our Facebook information ecosystem. It was too late, but we did it anyway. And so what is it? Blue are our partners, orange are the boundary spanners, and that's our spread, right? And we keep doing this. We're going to be ready for our 2025 elections. Last thing I'll say is, I got tired of being lied to by big tech. And so we decided to build deliberative technology. What is deliberative tech? Tech that is taking the information ecosystem and is not using algorithms or surveillance for profit to manipulate you. It's not trying to keep you scrolling, right? So what we did is we rolled this out at the beginning of the year, and we will be ready for our elections in 2025. It's a matrix protocol chat app connected to the news group with the ability to federate global news organizations, right? That's the goal of this. The most interesting thing is that real people want to have real conversations. We can't do that online right now, right? So here's the last part. Everyone in the room, you're here because you are powerful and you need to take a position and create the world you want now, because it will only get worse if you don't, right? Dmitry Muratov and I came up, and 300 Nobel laureate civil society groups. We focused on Europe because the United States was kind of lost in terms of legislation. The way we are going to fix this in the long term is education, medium term legislation. In the short term, it is us. So the 10-point action plan goes down to just 3 buckets. Stop surveillance for profit, right? Will this be possible with the oligarchy that has just been elected in the United States? Maybe with your help. The second, stop coded bias, because this code, if you are a woman, LGBTQ+, if you are a minority, if you're marginalized in the real world, you are further marginalized online in these social media platforms. So we need to demand better. I can give you references for all of this. And then finally, the last one, because we are an endangered species, because if you don't believe in us, if you don't think journalists are telling you the facts, democracy can't survive. If you think an influencer is a journalist, we are really in trouble, right? So journalism as an antidote to tyranny. I leave it here. It is up to us. This is what this moment demands. Who knows, maybe fascism will be better. We know it won't. We've been here before. This is the moment to act. Thank you.